The Warhammer 40K universe is built on a simple principle. Everything is designed to kill you in the most horrifying way possible, and nothing embodies that philosophy better than Titans, god machines so large they can step on tanks like empty beer cans. Today we're breaking down every major Titan class in the galaxy, ranked by catastrophic scale, from the scrappy scouts to the mythical relics that can level entire continents, starting with the smallest one that still counts, Warhound class Titan. The Warhound stands about 14 meters tall, which sounds massive until you realize that's the smallest class of true Titan Walker. It's basically the runt of the litter, crewed by about 5 leisure crew, 1 tech priest, and servitors. These things mount devastating weapons like plasma blast guns or Vulcan mega bolters on arm hardpoints. They can sprint at 58 kilometers per hour on road, making them the fastest repositioning units in any Titan Legion. Here's the thing, Warhounds are designed for reconnaissance and forward strikes. They're aggressive scouts built to hit hard and move fast. But here's where it gets dark. These machines operate with minimal crew redundancy. When they take fire, there's nobody to replace a dead Moderati. Standard deployment doctrine sends them ahead of the main formation into enemy fire zones where larger Titans can't risk exposure. They're the first ones into hell every single time. The Imperium is routinely deploying its smallest god machines in the most dangerous theaters with zero backup. These machines are designed to absorb enemy attention so the bigger ones don't have to. And yet, they're still devastating enough to turn entire battlefields into smoking craters. If you think one lean killing machine is disturbing, wait until you hear about the Eldar's psychic hover tank that moves faster than physics should allow. Revenant Titan. The Imperium builds tanks that walk. The Eldar build dancers that kill. Revenant Titans stand about 15 meters tall, roughly the same size as the Imperium's Warhound Scout class, but they operate on completely different principles. Thin, wraith bone legs that look like they'd snap under sustained fire. The entire machine leaps and runs across the battlefield using anti-gravity fields and psychic propulsion, which is technology the Imperium lost 10,000 years ago and still hasn't figured out how to replicate. Here's where it gets interesting. A Revenant requires a psychic bond between the pilot crew and the machine. The pilots are typically twin seers, and if the psychological compatibility isn't perfect, the thing just won't respond. Imperial Titans are crewed by dozens of tech priests operating consoles. Revenants are piloted by a psychically fused team mentally locked into the entire platform. One consciousness, one weapon, zero redundancy. Speed-wise, they move at 30 plus kilometers per hour across any terrain. A Revenant can outrun every single Imperial Titan class, which creates a tactical problem the Mechanicus has never solved. You can't bracket something that fast with static fire. By the time your targeting servitors calculate an intercept, it's already repositioned and firing from a different angle. The trade-off is durability. Eldar engineering prioritizes grace over armor plating. One solid hit can be catastrophic. Imperial doctrine builds walking fortresses. Eldar doctrine builds glass cannons that never get hit in the first place. Fewer than 100 confirmed operational Revenants exist across all Eldar factions. The Imperium has thousands of warlords. That's why the Eldar treat every single one like an irreplaceable relic. But if you think Wraithbone engineering is impressive, wait until you see what happens when the Imperium doubles down on the walking fortress approach with their medium class workhorse, Reaver class Titan. The Reaver is the workhorse. If you're facing a Titan in actual combat, statistically, it's going to be this one. Stands 50 to 55 meters tall, crewed by approximately 16 people, a Princeps, 2 Moderati, a tech priest, and a support crew of servitors spread across multiple redundant command stations, and it can carry basically any weapon configuration you can think of. Gatling blasters, melta cannons, laser destructors, quake cannons. Whatever the mission needs, a Reaver can probably mount it. Here's the thing, the Mechanicus produced these across every major Forge world for thousands of years, and they're still the most common battle Titan class in the Imperium, but that doesn't mean common by any normal standard. These machines take decades to construct, require resources entire planetary economies can't match, and every single one lost is a catastrophe the Mechanicus feels for centuries. The Horus Heresy alone destroyed thousands of irreplaceable war machines, and the Imperium has never recovered that manufacturing capacity. What makes Reavers genuinely dangerous is the Void Shield coverage. Multiple overlapping defensive fields can absorb devastating amounts of firepower before they collapse, and once they're down, the armor plating underneath can shrug off most conventional weapons. You're not killing one of these with small arms. You're not killing one with tanks. You need dedicated heavy ordnance or another Titan. Competitive players obsess over weapon loadout configurations for Reavers, and the debates get genuinely heated. Is the Gatling Blaster superior for sustained fire, or does the Melta Cannon's close-range devastation justify the risk? There's no consensus, which is probably why the Mechanicus built them modular in the first place. But if you think a walking war machine that can level city blocks is intimidating, wait until you see what the Tyranids brought to the table, our Hierophant Biotitan. The Hierophant Biotitan Bio-Titan is the only Titan on this list that can literally heal itself during combat. And before you dismiss that as exaggeration, hear me out. This thing is constructed entirely of living organic material. No metal, no servitors, no machine spirits. Just meat, bone, and Tyranid bioengineering. Which means when you blow a chunk off its torso, it doesn't need a Forge World repair bay. It just regenerates during the fight while you're still shooting at it. Hierophant stands somewhere between 50 and 60 meters tall, though exact measurements vary significantly between the 12 confirmed sightings documented in Mechanicus records. The fact that the height changes suggests these things are either still growing or mutating based on combat experience, which is exactly the kind of nightmare fuel you'd expect from a Hive Fleet mega creature. They're controlled by the Hive mind through psychic communion across thousands of kilometers. No crew, no cockpit, no tech priest desperately praying to the Omnissiah. Just a direct neural link to a galaxy-spanning alien consciousness that treats this thing like a remote-controlled weapon. The armament is equally horrifying. Maul cannons that fire living projectiles, tentacle clusters for close-range shredding, directed bioacid projection systems that dissolve armor plating on contact. Every weapon is organic, self-repairing, and fundamentally disgusting. Here's the kicker. Fewer than 12 confirmed sightings exist in official Imperial records. 12. That's not because they're rare. That's because most encounters don't leave witnesses. And the ones that do survive report watching the Hierophant regenerate damage that would permanently cripple a Warlord class. Unless you destroy one in a single catastrophic strike, it's effectively immortal. The community argues endlessly about whether this even qualifies as a Titan or belongs to a completely separate bioconstruct category. Personally, if it's 60 meters tall and ending entire campaigns, I'm calling it a Titan. But if you think self-healing nightmare creatures are bad, wait until you see the Imperial Titan specifically designed to punch through fortress walls. Warbringer Nemesis class Titan. The Warbringer Nemesis class is the tank Titan nobody asked for but the Imperium desperately needed. Standing 28 to 33 meters tall, positioned directly between Reaver and Warlord classes. This thing was built to absorb punishment that would vaporize anything else on the battlefield. And I mean anything. Here's the thing, most Titans follow the same philosophy, overwhelming firepower backed by decent protection. The Warbringer flips that script entirely. It prioritizes defensive capability and concentrated firepower as a siege platform, filling a doctrinal gap the Mechanicum discovered during the Great Crusade. The Void Shield arrays are designed to maintain coverage while delivering sustained bombardment, meaning this thing can hold ground while its enemies waste ammunition trying to break through. Armed with a Quake cannon for structural demolition and typically a volcano cannon or laser blaster for primary firepower, the Warbringer can still dish out devastation when needed. But that's not why it exists. Exact operational numbers are unknown because Titans are ludicrously rare, but every single Warbringer was designed during the Horus Heresy era specifically to counter fortified positions and enemy Titan formations. This isn't a general purpose war machine. It's a reactive design born from desperation. The theory goes that a Warbringer can survive concentrated firepower through superior defensive positioning and sustained counter battery fire, and the battlefield record backs that up. But here's where it gets complicated. That siege-focused philosophy makes them less flexible and slower than their peers in maneuver warfare. Casual players dismiss them as too specialized. Competitive players endlessly debate whether the trade-off is worthwhile. Nobody's reached consensus, which tells you everything you need to know about how polarizing this design is. At least the Warbringer commits to a doctrine, unlike the standard Warlord class, which tries to do everything at once. Warlord class Titan. The Warlord is what everyone thinks of when they hear Titan. Standing approximately 33 meters tall and crewed by 100 to 200 permanent tech priests, with an additional rotating staff of 300 plus for maintenance between campaigns, the Warlord class is the Imperium's standard super heavy war machine. And when I say standard, I mean there are roughly 5,000 to 8,000 operational warlords across the entire Imperium. That's more than any other super heavy Titan class in existence. Here's the thing, the Warlord isn't rare, it's not experimental, it's not some mythical relic you hear about in legends. It's the workhorse, the backbone, the Titan that shows up when the Imperium needs to level a city, hold a fortress, or delete an enemy formation from existence. And it does all three exceptionally well. Weapon configurations include Gatling blasters for suppression fire, volcano cannons for anti-armor, and plasma destructors for area denial. The Void Shield generators create protective domes spanning 250 to 300 meters, and can withstand firepower equivalent to 2 or 3 Imperial Guard regiments before failure. failure, which is, not exactly fragile. But here's where it gets interesting. Individual warlords have become so legendary that entire Titan legions are named after their warlord commanders. The Legio Astrorum's Invictus has held the same name for over 10,000 years. 10,000 years. The same machine, the same name, the same legacy. That's older than most human civilizations in the galaxy. And because warlords are so well documented, so extensively deployed, and so thoroughly analyzed, the community has spent literal decades arguing about the warlord versus warmaster debate. Which one's actually better? Which one wins in a straight fight? I don't know what to tell you. The argument will never end. But if you think a warlord is impressive, wait until you see what the Eldar built when they decided speed mattered more than armor. Phantom Titan. The Eldar don't do anything the way everyone else does, and that includes building Titans that can move at 30 kilometers per hour while mounting firepower that would make an Imperial warlord jealous, which sounds completely broken until you realize a single lucky shot from literally anything destroys the entire machine. Phantom Titans stand 40 to 45 meters tall. They're smaller than most Imperial heavy Titans, but they're armed with weapons that ignore line of sight and environmental obstructions entirely. Phantom pulsars and D-scythes use psychic targeting systems. You can't hide behind a building. You can't use terrain. The Eldar pilot just thinks about where you are and the weapon fires through the warp. And they move faster than anything else in this weight class, 30 kilometers per hour in active combat. For context, a warlord moves at 8 to 12. A Phantom can reposition, fire, and be gone before static defenses even track it. Imperial commanders have described fighting Phantoms as trying to shoot a hummingbird with a cannon. By the time you aim, it's already somewhere else. Fewer than 50 operational Phantoms exist across all known Eldar factions. Craft worlds, Exodites, Corsair fleets, everyone combined. 50. They're powered by warp-stabilized star engines that require specialized psychic maintenance only Eldar seers fully understand. If something breaks, you can't just replace the part. You need a psychically attuned engineer who speaks to the machine. Here's the problem. Phantoms are built from advanced materials that prioritize speed and grace over durability. There is zero system redundancy. One critical hit, one structural failure, and the entire Titan is gone. They don't limp away damaged. They don't retreat for repairs. They explode. Casual players call them unbalanced. Competitive players argue tier rankings constantly, and the Eldar lore fans will defend them to the death. But even they admit the design is a calculated risk. You can outmaneuver, outshoot, and outrun almost anything in the galaxy. But the moment someone lands a concentrated volley, you're done, which is still better than piloting a machine so large it can't hide and moves at the speed of continental drift. Speaking of which, Warmaster class Titan. There are Titans that win battles. Then there are Titans that end wars by showing up. The Warmaster class stands 41 meters tall, which means when one deploys in an urban environment, it towers over everything like a walking cathedral of destruction. Only 15 to 25 operational units exist across the entire Imperium. You could count every confirmed Warmaster on your fingers and toes, and you have digits left over. They're so rare that most Imperial Guard soldiers will serve their entire lives without ever seeing one, and most planetary governors will die without ever requesting one, because they know the answer will be no. Each Warmaster carries enough firepower to flatten a continent. Apocalypse missile launchers, plasma obliterators, Titan-grade Lust cannons, and experimental directed energy weapons that the Mechanicus and won't even name in official records. The void shields alone create protective domes spanning 10 to 30 meters, capable of absorbing sustained fire that would vaporize armored divisions, which is a nice way of saying one Warmaster can walk through your entire defensive line and nothing short of coordinated Titan-killing firepower is stopping it. Operating one requires a crew of 9 to 15 personnel, including the Princeps and Moderati, with extensive support staff for maintenance and preparation. The Princeps mentally interfaces with a machine spirit that has literally destroyed previous operators who weren't strong enough to control it. That's not a war machine, that's a god with a hair trigger temper and a crew that might not survive the mental link. Here's the thing though, single documented Warmaster deployments have ended multi-year campaigns within hours, not days, hours. And on at least 3 recorded occasions, wars ended before the Warmaster even fired a shot. The enemy saw it, surrendered immediately, and those got classified as technical victories. Imagine being so catastrophically outmatched that your entire military doctrine is, we give up the moment a specific silhouette appears on the horizon. The lore community has an almost religious debate about Warmaster versus Imperator supremacy, and it will never be resolved because the Mechanicus deliberately keeps both shrouded in mystique. But if you think a 41-meter god machine that ends wars through intimidation alone is terrifying, wait until you see what the orcs built out of scrap metal and pure belief. Great Gargant. Let me explain why orc engineering is simultaneously the dumbest and most terrifying thing in the galaxy. Great Gargants are massive walking fortresses towering over the battlefield, armed with super cannons, super rochets, and whatever chaotic weapon arrays the mech feels like bolting on that day. Nobody knows how many of these constructions exist across orc territories because orcs blow them up and rebuild them constantly, and the Imperium has better things to do than count scrap heaps. Here's the thing, Great Gargants are built from salvaged Imperial, Eldar, Necron, and Tyranid technology welded together into something that looks like a trash heap having an identity crisis. No standardized construction specifications exist. Every single one is different because every mech builds whatever they think will work. And here's where it gets weird. They do work. Imperial tech priests have studied this phenomenon extensively, which is a fancy way of saying these machines operate on belief in scrap metal. According to every rational engineering principle in the Imperium, Great Gargants should not function. The structural integrity makes no sense. The power distribution is impossible. The weapons shouldn't fire because half the components are missing or incompatible, but they do because the orcs believe they will. Gets better. Great Gargants possess regeneration capabilities fueled by collective wah energy. If enough orcs are nearby believing hard enough, a Great Gargant can rebuild itself after catastrophic damage. The machine literally repairs through psychic willpower and spare parts held together by vibes. The community debates whether these even qualify as real titans. Imperial purists argue they're just oversized scrap heaps. Orc players defend them with the same energy orcs defend everything, which is to say loudly and with zero concern for technical specifications. And honestly, the chaos and unpredictability is kind of perfect after 8 sections of precise Imperial engineering. But if you think orc construction's ridiculous, wait until you see the walking city killer that predates the Imperium itself. Imperator class Titan. The Imperator class is a walking apocalypse, and I mean that literally. These things stand 150 to 170 meters tall, which puts them at the height of major Imperial hive cities. You could park one next to a skyscraper and people would genuinely struggle to tell which one is the building and which one is the god machine designed to level continents. Here's the thing, nobody knows exactly how many Imperators actually exist. The official count is 4 to 7 confirmed operational units across the entire Imperium of mankind. That's it. For context, the Imperium spans 1,000,000 worlds. That means statistically, your planet has a higher chance of being consumed by Tyranids than ever seeing an Imperator deployment in person. But here's where it gets weird. The Imperium refuses to publicly acknowledge several known units. Their existence is classified above most governmental levels. We're talking state secrets so protected that planetary governors with clearance to launch exterminatus orders still can't access Imperator deployment records. The lore community has been speculating for years about how many are actually hidden across the galaxy, and the deliberate suppression of information just feed the mystery. Let's talk firepower. An Imperator carries Vulcan megabolters capable of firing over 1,000 rounds per minute, plasma destroyers that can vaporize entire city blocks, and warp-stabilized experimental weapons that the Mechanicus won't even name in official documents. The power output is estimated to be equivalent to a small star, not hyperbole. Actual Mechanicus calculations. Operating one requires dedicated power generation complexes just to keep it functional. The crew requirement is 500 permanent staff with an additional 2,000 to 3,000 rotating personnel for maintenance, supply, and repair cycles. That's not a war machine. That's a mobile city-state with guns. And deployment? Single Imperator deployments have been treated as war-winning decisions, with political discussions often lasting months before anyone pulls the trigger. Literally, we're talking about weapons so strategically important that using one becomes a diplomatic incident before it even fires a shot. But if you think a continent-leveling god machine classified as a state secret is disturbing, wait until you hear about the corrupted Warlord variant that can fire weapons through the warp itself. Warlord Sinister, PSI Titan. Take everything that makes a Warlord iconic and give it the most disturbing upgrade the Imperium ever sanctioned. That's what you get. The Warlord Sinister stands 70 to 90 meters tall. Same frame as its standard counterpart, but modified beyond recognition through psychic weaponization and blank binding. Instead of normal tech priests maintaining sacred machine rights, you've got the Ordo Sinister piloting these things with blank preceptor intendants, which fundamentally breaks every operational doctrine the Mechanicus ever established. The entire command structure isn't built on scripture and tradition anymore. It's built on psychic nullification fields and reality suppression. Enhanced with sassy weapon systems, these modified frames can amplify firepower through literal psychic projection powered by bound psychers. The Sinistra Manus weapon, the East-Side Titan's primary armament, allows them to manipulate reality around their targets, which leads to the most controversial tactical claim. Warlord Sinisters can allegedly project psychic annihilation through dimensional barriers, bypassing line of sight and environmental obstructions entirely. You could be standing behind a mountain inside a bunker surrounded by void shields, and a Warlord Sinister could theoretically put a shot through real space and hit you anyway. Competitive players call this balance-breaking nonsense. Lore fans call it perfectly thematic horror. Fewer than 20 confirmed variants exist across the galaxy, maintained exclusively by the Ordo Sinister. These machines display controlled psychic phenomena during combat, deliberate reality manipulation that escalates with tactical necessity, and null field effects that get stronger with every engagement. The machine literally becomes more dangerous the more you use it. Here's the kicker. Pilots are blanks experiencing permanent psychic isolation. Long-term operators show signs of emotional degradation, sensory deprivation, complete social detachment, and eventual psychological breakdown. Operating a Warlord Sinister isn't just dangerous because you're piloting a psychic god machine in active combat. It's dangerous because the machine requires you to be a blank, which means you're fundamentally isolated from humanity every second you exist, which means every deployment is just another day of being completely alone inside your own head, the sanctioned nightmare of imperial necessity. Everything the Warlord represents weaponized through the very psychic horrors the Imperium claims to fight. But if you think psychic reality manipulation sounds horrifying, wait until you see the Castigator class Titan. So here's the thing about the Castigator. There's only one. Ever. You have exactly one documented operational unit, discovered on the Forge world of Charania during excavations, a genuine Dark Age of technology relic that somehow survived intact when humanity was still good at building things, standing approximately 80 to 100 meters tall depending on which fragmentary records you trust. The Castigator represented a specialized Titan design from an era when innovation wasn't considered tech heresy, which is already significant because finding complete STC-era Titans is approximately as common as finding the Emperor in a good mood. But here's the problem. The Mechanicus found this thing, recognized it as a legitimate ancient pattern, and immediately had zero idea what to do with it. The specifications didn't match any known Titan class. The weapon systems utilized technologies the Imperium no longer fully understands. This was a genuine Dark Age war machine, potentially containing manufacturing secrets and design principles lost for 10,000 years, the kind of discovery that could revolutionize Titan production if anyone could reverse engineer it. Here's where it gets dark. The Grey Knights destroyed it. During the Second War for Armageddon, this irreplaceable piece of humanity's technological heritage got caught in a demonic incursion. Rather than risk corruption or capture, the Grey Knights made the call to annihilate the Castigator entirely, which, from their perspective, makes perfect sense. You don't let chaos get hold of a Dark Age superweapon. But from the Mechanicus perspective, they just watched the only example of an ancient Titan pattern get permanently erased from existence. No backup data, no recovered components, just gone. So the Imperium traded a unique archaeological treasure for tactical expediency, which either represents necessary pragmatism in the face of demonic threats, or the single greatest loss of irreplaceable technology in recent Imperial history. The Mechanicus will never recover those secrets. The STC pattern is lost, and humanity is marginally dumber than it was before. One type, one chance to learn from humanity's golden age, one Grey Knight purge, zero survivors, which perfectly encapsulates the Imperium's relationship with its own history. Find something priceless, immediately destroy it, spend the next 1,000 years wondering what was lost. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.